What is up, everybody? We just got back from a huge ice fishing weekend. Reed and I were up on Lake Granby Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It is Sunday evening. We just got home, unpacked, unloaded. We have 11 lake trout. We are allowed on Lake Granby to catch 12 per person, keep 12 per person. We only got 11 this weekend, and that's totally fine. We're excited. It's fish in the fridge. So I wanted to show you what we do with this because it is a staple meal in our house for us to consume the food that we catch and we hunt. So lake trout, our new favorite way to process and preserve lake trout is through smoking it. So all we're gonna do, we have the lake trout whole. This is not your thing. I'm gonna disclaim right now, we're cutting up fish. They are currently whole, untouched. They are dead. So if that's not for you, you may want to tune out. But if this is something that you are interested in, we have 11 lake trout that we need to fillet and get prepped for brining in the brine that we soak them in before we smoke them. So that is what we're doing today. Let me know what you do with your lake trout. First things first, we want a clean fillet knife and then we need to sharpen it. Alright, so we now have a clean knife. This fillet knife comes with us when we go ice fishing because it is the best one we have, but because of that, it's also dull, and so you want to work with a sharp knife because these fish, some of them are tough and you have to cut through some of their bones the way that we do it, so you definitely want a sharp knife. And a sharp knife is considered less dangerous because you don't have to use as much force. When you use a lot of force with a knife, the risk of cutting yourself increases. That should be good, right?
That should be good.
Yep, let me rinse it off. And Reed is actually going to show you how to do this. Reed is the fish master.
I don't know about that.
The first meal he and I ever had that was home cooked was from him. We caught walleye and then we had a walleye fish fry. So he was actually the one who cooked first. Not me.
I'd never since then. Well, a lot of fish are different, but you can do this with quite a few fish. We do this because we fillet them, just because it does smoke the best, and it's kind of the easiest. So you come down, you make a cut right behind the gill plate here, and then you go right down along the spine. And you're trying to keep it as close to the spine as possible. So you shouldn't have really any meat here. And you'll see that we still have rib bones in here, but we'll take those out in a minute. Then you can see that should almost be see-through. That should almost be see-through, so you get the maximum amount of meat. And we're going to discard that. And then for the ribs, you can sort of feel the edges of the bones here, and all you're going to do is you're just going to feel for the bones. And you're just going to come right along them, sort of scraping them and pulling them back as you do that. And I missed a couple here. Trim off the belly, fat, and any fins that you might have missed. There are still bones that are right here. They are a little bit harder to get out, but once you smoke it, those bones come out really easily. Or if you bake it, those bones pull out really easily. They're not necessary. You can cut them out, but we don't.
So as we mentioned before, Reed is the fish master in this house. I do in fact know how to fillet a fish. However, Reed is far more efficient at it than I am. And since we had already been driving for about 2.5, 3 hours at this point, and then we were tired and it had been a fun but long weekend. Reed just decided he was the one who was going to go ahead and fillet the fish to help easily demonstrate what all needed to be done and to also get the process going and make this go faster. Furthermore, Reed also wanted me to mention that with fish, especially if you live in places like Minnesota or along the coastlines and you have the opportunity to eat bigger fish, that is generally when you have to worry about mercury in your fish, especially if you are pregnant. These lake trout aren't really going to cause a concern. They generally aren't big enough. You typically find higher mercury levels or mercury levels, period, in either contaminated fish or in fish that are large. These lake trout are not that large in comparison to the fish I am currently referencing. Also, you may notice that Reed is cutting up these fish on top of our local grocery store ads, and that is because it helps absorb some of the slime that the fish excrete and put off, and they stick a little bit better than if it was just on a cutting board. These fish are incredibly slimy, and the newspaper ads or the grocery store ads, the type of paper, the material is far better at helping absorb that slime. So that is why we prefer to use it when we are cutting up fish. So Reed and I both grew up fishing. However, neither one of us really grew up hunting, and one of our goals is to be a little more self-sufficient. That is part of the reason that I like to garden. It is part of the reason that I like to preserve our own food, is to limit our reliability on the system. Essentially, the system can be backed up, the system can get convoluted, the system can be lacking, and I have been in a position where there was nothing I could do while the system was lacking, and I would like to have a little bit more control. So now Reed and I very much strive to be as self-sufficient, independent, and sustainable as we possibly can. And with that involves hunting. And hunting is one of the main sources of meat that Reed and I consume on a yearly basis. That also includes fish. So we are avid fishermen, anglers, and it is something that we do year round. And that happens in seasons. So right now it is officially spring, so the winter season is over. So winter season, we go for lake trout, and then in the spring, we typically target walleye in our area. And so everything is seasonal, and we work on a seasonal basis, but all of this is to help Reed and I become more in tune with the land that we live with, to be more independent from the system and just be more self-reliant overall. And so I wanted to take you guys along with, as I showed you how Reed and I go about using up these resources that we spend so much time working on, working to achieve, and working to acquire. So while Reed is filleting all the fish, I'm going to go ahead and get the first round of brine made up for when Reed has half of the fish ready to go. We're going to have to do these in two halves because we just don't have a vessel that can, one, hold all of the fish, but also we're not going to be able to do all of the smoking at once. We both have to work tomorrow. Reed is going to go ahead and smoke some of the fish tomorrow after work so we can get some of them brining tonight. However, we won't be able to get all of them done tomorrow evening. So we're only going to start with one batch. The other fillets will sit in the fridge until we are ready to brine them up, and they will be just fine. They're not going to be in there longer than 24 hours anyways. So it is equal parts salt to equal parts brown sugar for this brine. It is going to be half a cup of salt, half a cup of brown sugar, and the original recipe that we found online calls for a gallon of water. The vessel we are using for the fish fillets doesn't hold a gallon plus the lake trout. And honestly, we found that that works for us. It really doesn't bother us. We're really happy with the way that the smoked trout turns out. So that's the way we do it. But there is a minimum of 8 cups of water going into this. And then I just add water until there is about half an inch of wiggle room on top of the vessel. And I will show you what that looks like. So let's go ahead and get the salt into this bucket. Half a cup of salt. Then we're gonna do half a cup of brown sugar. Let me get my, oops, not there. That is about half a cup. I'm gonna have to make more brown sugar before we make our next batch. But also, when you are making this, because it is a brine, you wanna make sure you use a non-reactive container. So aluminum would be considered reactive. We are gonna be using ceramic, and ceramic is non-reactive. Now I'm gonna top it off with filtered water. That is our preference. Our tap water contains chlorine and fluoride and all the things, and we have a reverse osmosis filter, and that is what I would prefer to use. Do you want me to get you another piece of?
Yep.
Okay, our water is in our pitcher, and I'm gonna go ahead and whisk some of this together just to kind of get some of the salt dissolved, and some of the sugar dissolved before we mix it with the trout. Okay, so I have gone ahead and rinsed 12 fillets, and I have put them in our container. This container is what we're going to be brining the first batch of lake trout fillets in. We aren't going to put them in the brine just yet. I should have waited until tomorrow to make up the brine. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. There was a miscommunication between Breed and I didn't fully understand what we were talking about. It's been a long weekend. But these are going to sit in the fridge tomorrow morning before I go to work or before I get up and go to the gym. I will mix the fillets with this brine, so that way they are brining for about 8 to 10 hours before we smoke them. We try not to let them sit in the brine for too terribly long, because they can take on a interesting flavor. Not necessarily bad, but not necessarily right either. So we're gonna let those sit. The other fillets we're gonna get into another container, and then we will brine them about 10 to 12 hours before we're ready to smoke them as well. And the last 5 lake trout fillets have been rinsed, cleaned. They're in my 9x13 that has a lid. I am trying to use as little plastic bags as possible. And so this is what we got. Plus, some of these fillets are huge. So our largest fish was 21 inches. And so we needed a container that was long enough to fit the fillets. And now we have it. So I will take you along with me tomorrow when I go ahead and put those fillets in the brine. We'll show you how Reed is going to go ahead and smoke the trout, and then we will show you the finished product when we're done. Once we get everything prepped, the fish taken care of, and everything is now put in the fridge until tomorrow morning, I am going to go ahead and follow through and just make sure that all of these countertops and our sink are completely sanitized. I don't like leaving the counters left alone after any sort of raw meat is handled and or butchered on the countertops. So I like to go ahead and right away go ahead and use some cleaner to sanitize. I I'm currently using Odoban. I am looking for a little bit more natural, less toxic cleaner. I know you can use vinegar, but this is currently what I have on hand, and it's what's going to work for the moment. All right, so it is the next morning. I am getting everything out of the fridge. And all I'm going to do here is give the brine a little whisk to make sure that nothing is settled at the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour the brine on top of the fish. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my hands in there and just make sure I get the liquid incorporated all throughout and that the fish aren't sticking together. I want to make sure that all of the fish adequately have time to absorb all of the brine. All right, y'all, I'm home. I had to go to the store. But now that I'm home, we need to get this fish put onto some drying racks so it can start kind of drying out a little bit. That way it smokes just a little bit better. Honestly, I don't even know if I need 2 of these cookie sheets or not. So we will find out. All I'm going to do to help these fish drip dry is I brought out 2 cooking sheets and 2 of my cookie cooling racks, and I'm going to go ahead and place the fish on top, and this is going to allow any of the liquid to kind of slowly drip off of the fish, but that way the fish aren't still sitting in the liquid. Ultimately, this isn't enough, and we do actually need to use paper towels. You don't want the fish to be super moist going into the smoker. It'll take far longer for the fish to smoke. You guys are about to laugh at me by a lot, but I have to store these fish in our oven. It's not on, but because I have a cat, he jumps on everything. We don't like him being on the counter. He still gets up there, okay? And especially if I'm not in the kitchen and I leave this out, he'll be all over it. So the way that I store things to keep Boots out of it is I either store it in the microwave or I store it in the oven, and today we're gonna put it in the oven. We're just gonna put them in here so that way the fish can drip dry a little bit before Reed gets home and gets the smoker going. Usually you want to do this step for about 30 minutes to like an hour before you smoke them, so we'll see how long they get. All right, Reed said that the smoker is preheated, so we are ready to go ahead and get the lake trout fillets onto the smoker. Reed added the paper towels afterwards to just help absorb some extra moisture since we aren't letting the lake trout kind of dry off on their own for an extended period of time. That just kind of speeds up the process. We try to avoid using paper towels when we can, but certain applications we just like the ease of use of paper towels. So we flip them and then dab them some more.
Yep, just try to get any loose moisture off. It doesn't have to be perfect, but...
Hear that, folks? Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't go outside. No, sir. Oh, sweet. And the door opens that way. Well, here's the first tray. So Reed is the smoke master. We got the smoker and he took it upon himself to learn how to use the smoker, and we have discovered we absolutely love smoked lake trout, and that's now our favorite way to eat it and use it up and process it.
So what I've done is I've preheated the smoker to about 200 degrees. Generally I like to keep it about 180 to 175 for the first hour or two. Once the fish starts to firm up a little bit, I'll increase it to about 200 to 225 degrees, and that gives it just a little bit firmer meat. Also, I'll sort of rotate the racks in here, so I'll get some of them a little bit closer to the bottom and rotate the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, that side type of thing, to make sure they all cook evenly. We have used, we're using apple wood chips here. They say apple is the best for fish, but we've used hickory, we used cherry. I haven't necessarily found a difference, but they all do taste pretty good.
You want to shine a line on this? More? Okay. So I'll show you guys inside because it's not doing very good out here.
So once they're in there, we're going to let them sit for, well, I generally check them about every 30 to 45 minutes, making sure the temperature is staying steady. Also, about every 2 hours or so, we're going to need to change out the wood chips because they do get burnt up. Typically, this much fish at about 200 degrees takes me anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to smoke them properly. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to get the internal temperature to 145 degrees.
So these are the wood chips that Reed picked up today. They are the, looks like Smoky Woods wood chips. Apple, like he said, we tend to pick up our wood chips from Ace Hardware. I think you can get them at almost any hardware store. I think you can get them at Walmart. Probably order them off of Amazon, but this is a new brand. We didn't have this brand last time, so we'll see how it turns out. So it's been about an hour and a half. Let me show you what the fish are looking like real quick without taking too much of the heat out. So they're starting to get a good solid layer on the skin or on the flesh. You can see it's starting to glaze over a little bit. That's what we want. So hopefully these will be done in another hour and a half.
So it is now the next day. Reed actually stayed up to finish smoking the fish. I went to bed. I am pretty useless after 10 p.m. and the fish probably didn't finish until about 11. So Reed stayed up with the fish. So I didn't get to show you what that looked like. But now it is the next day, and on this day I do work from home. So it is currently my lunch break. So I'm going to go ahead and get the fish drip drying on these trays one more time, and then we will let them sit out for about an hour, and then I will get the smoker heated on up and we will get these fish going.
All right, so for sure these racks are done. I need to figure out if this guy's done. So we'll just close that for a minute. Let's see. So these bottom ones. Okay, so the bottom ones aren't done, but the top ones are for sure done. So we're gonna take those off. No, that one's... one's a little thick. We'll take that one. How are you looking? You're a little thick too, so there we go, like that. Okay, we'll go let these cool down. Alright, the last, don't mind the mess, okay? There's been a lot going on, so that will get taken care of tonight. I just haven't had time to do it today. These are our beautiful 11 lake trout fillets. So excited. All right, we are getting our lake trout finally put away. We prefer to vacuum seal them, and we generally vacuum seal them in packages of 2. That way Reed and I can just make a meal out of a package, which we prefer. Oh, turn that up. Oh man. I don't understand. We think this breaker is faulty because we trip this breaker every time we use this outlet. Okay. That's so bizarre. But then once we plug it back in or reset it, it works. I don't know. So we think we have a faulty breaker. We must have a faulty breaker because I just tripped it again. That's annoying. Okay. We're gonna use that plug. Okay. Wow. 3rd time is a charm. Let's try getting this fish sealed up again. Maybe we'll put 3 of them in there since they're small. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Because I also gave a fillet to my boss. He asked for one. And we have no issue sharing. Here we go.
So thank you for coming along with us as I showed you how we process our lake trout and preserve the meat that Reed and I work so hard to put into our freezer. If you are a hunter or if you fish, I would love to hear how you preserve your meat, especially if you preserve and fish for lake trout. I would love to know what else you do with it. We are always looking for ways to expand our culinary skills, especially where wild game is concerned. Wild game is new to us, so it is still something I need to work on and I need to grow in this area. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If this is something that you enjoyed, please consider giving me a thumbs up. And I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.